Welcome back to another Ret Paladin video. Verabin here. Today we are looking at the brand new Final Verdict Legendary. The day is here. 9.0.5 brought us an amazing buff to this Legendary. If you're not aware, this Legendary now does 15% additional damage, and that is on top of the already chunky damage that Templar's Verdict does in PvP. So we're doing some testing in 3v3 to kind of see how that buff is affecting our viability. How much damage does it do? Is it really worth the hype? So stick around. Let's take a look. All right, so one of the most common questions I've gotten this week is, what is the best legendary now in PvP? Are we still going to be using the Reign of Endless Kings, the more defensive prot legendary, or are we going to use something like Sefuz? Or is the Final Verdict Legendary everything that we want it to be? So in my limited testing this week, I only played about 15 games of 3v3 with some random people just to kind of see how it went. The Final Verdict, I think, plays really, really well into certain types of comps. It plays really well if you're playing a more offensive sort of melee cleave comp, which I think are ones that are really, really strong for Ret right now, as far as Ret Warrior or maybe Ret Windwalker. These clips are actually playing with Ret Windwalker and with a Holy Priest, and I think it went pretty well. I think because the Holy Priest has really, really strong throughput and heals, I'm able to spend a lot more time dealing damage, and there are still a lot of warriors in the meta right now, so being able to use that Final Verdict through disarm is really, really important, and that's definitely one piece of Final Verdict that I think is probably the most important. I mean, the damage is really, really good, obviously, but being able to hit through disarm, I think, is really the reason why this is so good. So I think that has been really, really good, and the testing that I was able to do showed that it does do significantly more damage. And the other thing that was changed in this patch was, it looks like they changed a bug from Templar's Vindication, the conduit that does a sort of like a randomly procs an extra Templar's Verdict, or in this case Final Verdict. So that conduit was actually fixed. I guess it was a bug and it wasn't getting some benefits from certain damage increasing abilities and things like that. So that was increased as well. So I think that's maybe another important part about why our damage seems better. And so I think those two things combined, I think, are definitely increasing Ret's viability. I know there was a lot of concern about whether Ret was going to get kind of nerfed and how the Kyrian Ret stuff was going to affect our viability, but I think that has probably been put to rest, at least in sort of low to mid rankings. So another thing I wanted to mention was that against certain types of comps, especially a setup-based comp like RMP, I'm not sure you're going to be able to go without a more defensive setup, like playing something potentially like a Battlemaster trinket plus the Reign of Endless Kings plus maybe even Divine Purpose, something like that, where it's more of a defensive sort of like base setup, so that you can survive those goes, because your priest or your healer is not going to have enough cooldowns to kind of keep themselves out of CC, and you're also in those comps you're also going to want to play your Blessing of Sanctuary as well, so you can get them out of a kidney shot. But anyway, so I think against a lot of comps you're definitely still going to want to play that Reign of Endless Kings. So if you did upgrade your legendary for that, like me, then I don't think that's going to get wasted necessarily. I think that's definitely something to be concerned about. But as far as I'm concerned, I think that it's definitely, the Final Verdict Legendary is definitely one that is going to be a tool that you want in your toolkit, because from what I've seen playing melee cleaves, a lot of it is just trying to do more damage than the team and just sort of beast your way through. These are definitely like not the hardest comps to play. And as you're seeing the footage in the background, you can see like there's not even a lot of like support that I need to do before the Holy Priest. Like every once in a while I will put Blessing of Sacrifice on him, or maybe a bop or something like that, but it's pretty rare. I don't really have to heal him, and I don't really have to heal myself a whole lot. So in these comps, I mean, there's definitely times where I lost or I died. And if I had the Prot Legendary, I would have survived. But I think that there are much more times where you get benefits from this really, really aggressive playstyle. If you can't tell from the footage, I run a human, and I don't run a Battlemaster trinket. I don't even run an on-use trinket. I run a proc trinket and an on-use damage trinket. So So having those that just increase burst damage and things like that, I think is almost kind of like this idea of, the best kind of defense is a good offense. And I think that that's where Ret kind of excels, because having those increases to your strength and stuff like that actually do kind of increase your defensiveness, because it increases your healing. So in these short games, I don't think I played any games that were more than 3 or 4 minutes long. We didn't go very deep into dampening or any dampening at all in that matter. So your defense actually stays pretty strong. So I wasn't really felt like I needed the Reign of Endless Kings. So it just felt like with as much damage as Final Verdict was doing, in addition to the Templar's Vindication change, it just didn't feel like I needed the damage. So that was really, really a good feeling from my testing. Another thing I wanted to mention was that these changes can't really be looked at in a vacuum. There are a lot of changes that happened in this patch that affect other classes besides Ret, and I think that looking at those other changes, in addition to the Final Verdict changes, is kind of a more fair way to look at it, because it does look to me like our burst actually increased. I posted a short video a couple days ago, so check that out. I'll put a card in the right-hand corner for that. But it just shows that our burst is probably higher than ever because of how much damage Templar's Verdict can do when you upgrade it with the Final Verdict Legendary. I mean, I think I did 3 back-to-back, like 20 plus K spenders in the matter of 10 seconds. So these things are hitting so hard, and that's without versatility, so they're not going to hit quite that hard in PvP, but you can see in the footage in the background, even the non-crits, I'm getting 10, 15, 20k non-crit, so it's pretty crazy damage. And so I think looking at that and kind of seeing how other classes got improved, and things like Warlocks, for example. I think Warlocks are going to be really, really tough for Rets to fight into because of the mobility issues that Ret has, and the fact that Warlocks often run their Legendary that makes Corruption apply a slow. So they basically have a permanent slow, and that's not great. So that's not great for us. And so there's things like that where I think we're going to start seeing more Warlocks, and probably the Warlocks are going to cause some problems for us. So I think that's another thing to keep in mind. And the other cool thing that is not really related to the patch notes, and I don't really think it's related to anything other than gear scaling, things like that, is that Holy Priests seem to be rising really, really quickly in the meta right now, and Ret works really, really well with Holy Priests, because Holy Priests have a stun on their Chastise, and it's a really, really short cooldown stun that I think will really help kind of Ret get those setups that they need. And you could say the same thing with someone like like a Holy Paladin who can do stuns and blinds and stuff like that. But theirs are such short range that it's not quite the same. They're not really able to get the same sort of setups that Holy Priests can provide. The other cool thing is that Holy Priests have hots and a lot of instant heals and things like that. They have a lot of the things that make Holy Paladin good. So I think that what I'm getting at, though, is that because Holy Priests are getting stronger and Holy Priests work so well with Ret, that I think that that kind of inherently makes Ret stronger, right? Because you've got a really, really strong synergy. You know what I mean? It's kind of like if Mage gets a buff, then Rogue automatically gets a buff in 2v2, because Rogue Mage is such an amazing comp in 2v2. So that's kind of what I'm seeing with Holy Priests as well. And when you look at the meta reports and things like that, it seems like Holy Priests are doing really, really well in the meta. So I mentioned Warlocks before, but I think this is true for Mages and any other casters as well, is that the range increase that we're seeing from Final Verdict, going from 5 yards to 10 yards, is actually a really, really big deal when you're playing into casters, because there are so many times where you're just out of range and you can't reach them, and and because it hits so hard, it's a really, really deadly ability, and being able to pop somebody from just a few yards away is a really, really big deal. And that 5 to 10 yards makes it feel a lot better. I'm really enjoying playing a lot more now than I was before, because I felt like by using Final Verdict in the past, I really wasn't, it didn't feel like Ret was playing up to his potential, because we were very easily kited, and if you didn't play Unbound Freedom, you would not really have a way to catch your enemies. So I think that is a big deal as well, being able to have that range and be able to have a more versatile PvP talents and things like that. I think that's been a really big deal in this patch, and even just this one little change to one of our legendaries can make a really, really big impact on our viability. So I'm really excited to see how Ret is going to move up the ranks, because what we were seeing in the last few weeks was that Ret was actually kind of played a lot in the lower rankings, but fell off a lot as we look up at the higher brackets on the high end of the ladder. So I think that we're going to maybe see a reversal of that. We're going to maybe see people creeping up a little bit, especially in 3v3. All right, so if you haven't noticed by now, I'm a very, very strong advocate at this point for you crafting the Final Verdict Legendary. If you're a Ret Paladin and you have any interest in multiple different types of content, I would definitely encourage you to craft this Legendary. When you sim it, it's possible that it's not going to sim quite as high as other ones, but I believe that most players are probably playing a lot of different sort of game modes, even if it's just battlegrounds and stuff like that. So there might be a best in slot raid single target one out there for you, but that doesn't mean that that's necessarily the first one that you should craft. So I'm a big advocate for crafting Final Verdict first. And I'm going to let the rest of this video play out. If you enjoy this type of content, please be sure to hodge that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Yeah.